Hey everybody, today I am going to go over where to find images and fonts to help put together your cover. And if you watched the last video, you'll remember we talked about the 5 elements of a good book cover, and you're going to want to keep those in mind as we look for artwork or as you look for artwork. Just to recap, the 5 elements are: it should indicate the genre, it should indicate the tone of your story, it should have art that is interesting and draws the eye. Using a human figure or an interesting face works well because those things tap into our inner psychology as social creatures. There should be a suggestion of story on the cover. It should suggest something that has happened or is happening. And any figure should be active doing something, not posing or taking a step, for instance. They should be running or looking at something, something like that. So keep those 5 elements in mind as you look for different art for your cover. You don't have to hit all 5, but you want to hit as many as possible. And in my opinion, the first 3 are absolutes. So think about your story, its genre, the tone, what you'd like to be on the cover, like maybe a scene from your book or something that suggests an underlying message if there is one. Now, we're not going to use KRITA to create the art from scratch. We do need to know, and because we're not doing that, we need to know where to find art. And there are 4 areas I'm going to focus on. One is free art. And this includes art that is in the public domain, and it's going to include something like Creative Commons or donation based or something like that. The other is paid commercial art. And this is going to include art that is from sites like iStock.com, Pond5, Shutterstock. These are all surprisingly affordable. And they're used by movie studios and advertising firms. And they typically have multiple levels of licensing that makes them affordable even for smaller artists like ourselves. The third one is artificial intelligence. And I know it's controversial, but I want to show it to you anyway so you have the option of using it if you want to. I will say this, AI is very easy to spot unless it's been touched up by a professional. So I do recommend not using it for anything except maybe inspiration, unless you know what you're doing. And if you're one of those people who knows how to do graphic art, you're probably just laughing at me. I can hear you typing away in the comments below. So the fourth is just go out and hire a graphic artist. And I know it can be expensive, but it's not nearly as much as you might think. You can go to approach colleges. You can talk to students in universities and ask them to do this. You want to pay them. Don't say, "Hey, I'll give you an opportunity to pad your resume." As a freelance writer, as writers, we hear that all the time. I can't pay you, but if you write for me, you'll be able to pad your resume. No, you pay somebody for their work. You'd want to get paid for your work. So if you're going to hire a college student, you pay them for theirs. Now you're going to pay them less than you would a seasoned professional because they don't have as much experience under their belt, but they are going to be better than nothing. That said, uh, my focus here in creating these videos is to give you tools that are free or at least inexpensive so that you can funnel all that money that you save toward other resources that you would need to cover gaps in your skill set. So we're also going to look at different types of typefaces or fonts that something you may not know about Office 365 or Office Professional. If you're not running the professional versions, you're not licensed to produce commercial content with them. And that includes the use of their typefaces. Those are intellectual property and they are protected under copyright law. So I've never heard of anyone getting sued for a copyright strike over a font, but unlicensed fonts may not work in your software, and Amazon and other publishers could substitute them for licensed ones, which would affect the layout and design of your book. I highly recommend licensing both the artwork and the fonts that you use so that if you get a copyright strike or worse, you have your account closed, you actually can fight it. And honestly, they're not that expensive to get these licenses. So in addition to our artwork and fonts, we're also going to create a template for our book, and we're going to download KRITA, which we'll use to layer all of our elements like the templates, the background art, the titles, the author's name, the blurb, and anything else we need to create a composite. Then we'll take that and import it into Scribus to create our final cover as a PDF that we can upload to Amazon or Ingram Spark or any other print-on-demand publisher you want. So I've already done a video on how to use Scribus to do the internal layout for your book, but we're not going to do anything that complicated. We're just going to use it to convert our file from a graphic image into a PDF file. Let's go ahead and get started with the video. The first thing you'll need before anything else is a template that shows you the guides where everything should go so that nothing gets cut off by the printer. And on that note, let's stop for a moment. If you haven't finished your book, and by that I mean if you haven't finished the interior layout and design of your book, with the title page, the copyright notice, the front matter, the table of contents. Don't go any further. You need the finished book to be able to use the template, because we need to know how many pages your interior is, so we can know how thick the book is going to be. Without that, nothing's going to line up the way it's supposed to. Now, I'll talk more about that later. But if you haven't got your book's interior laid out, don't get ahead of yourself and design the cover first, because nothing will be lined up properly. It doesn't matter for ebooks, but for print books, that page count is essential. If you're ready, let's go and open a browser and head over to Amazon's KDP site. And I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you already know about Amazon's KDP site. And if not, it's really the place where you go to create your books and upload them and set the markets you want to sell and set the price and so on. There are other publishers like Barnes and Noble and Ingram Spark, and they all have they have a template you can create from them, but Amazon's the biggest, so that's the one we're going to use. So the template is found on the KDP Tools and Resource site, which you can access from the KDP homepage. And I'll show you how to get there, but I'm also going to put a link to it down below. So what we're going to do here on this homepage is we're going to locate the link that says Tools and Resources and click on it. And you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff right away. You'll see a lot of categories, but we're looking for the paperback and hardcover category. And you can click on that or scroll down until you get to it. And we're going to go to the Use the Cover Calculator and Template Generator, which is right here. You can see it right there. And you just click on that. And this is what I was talking about before. There's a couple of fields in here that you're going to put in. And one of them is the binding type. And I'm going to go over these each individually. But you'll see right here, one of them is also the page count. And we have to have the exact page count, like I said before, in order to know the thickness of your book. And if we don't have the thickness of your book measured precisely, then the guides in the front cover is not going to line up with the edge of the book and the fold of the back spine and all that sort of stuff, and it'll be all messed up. So we want to actually make sure that we have that number. So I'll get that in just a second, but basically the first one is the binding type. You're going to pick whether you're going to do hardcover or paperback. You're going to select your interior type, whether it's black and white, premium color, standard color. I'm a novelist, so I do black and white. I'm assuming most of you are also novelists, but pick the one that best suits what you want to publish as. The paper type is important only in that it's going to determine the thickness of the book. Cream paper is thicker than the white paper, is my understanding. And so pick which one you want. I prefer the white paper. I just think it feels better under the fingertips. Some people prefer the cream paper. It's just a matter of personal preference, but I always go with white paper. The reading direction is pretty straightforward, just like which direction you read from. If you're in most of the Western Hemisphere, you're going to read left to right. If you're in the Eastern Hemisphere, you're going to be reading right to left. So pick the one that matches up with that so that your book is configured correctly. If you get it backwards, if you do right to left, you're going to have a book where the front is going to be on what we typically think is the back, and vice versa. So make sure you got that right. Measurement units, this just is whether you use imperial or metric. You're going to see both on the template when it generates it, but whichever one you set as your preference, that one will be bolded and larger than the secondary one. I'm in the United States, we use inches, and that's what I'm going to pick. Then the interior trim size, and this is another reason why you need to know and have your book set up in advance. You have to have it completed, because you will have set up and configured what your trim size is going to be. Is it going to be 5x8? Is it going to be 6x9, which is the trade publication size, the standard for that? And that's the one I use. But you need to know what your book's dimensions are so that they'll fit in the cover and you don't have things running off the page. All right, so I'm going to pick 6x9, and then this is your page count, and the page count is absolutely critical. So I'm going to show you where to get the page count, because that's important. So you can actually go into your folder here, and I've got my files in here, so let's go to downloads, and I'm going to show you a cool trick here that I use to find things easier. If you're running Microsoft Windows 11, you can go up here to the top where it says sort, and you can say group by, and you can choose type. And when it does that, it's going to sort everything by the type of file it is. So I just right click on the header. If you right click on the header up here, you can choose the option to collapse the group, expand all groups, or collapse all groups. I'm going to collapse all groups. And then I'm going to just scroll down here, and I'm going to go to Microsoft Edge PDF document. Now it says Microsoft Edge PDF document because that's my preferred program for opening PDF files. If you're using Acrobat Reader, then it would say Acrobat Reader PDF document. So this is alphabetical, I'm sure you noticed. Depending on which one is your preferred program, that's where you're going to find it. So look for it probably under Acrobat or maybe Chrome. I prefer Microsoft Edge. Okay, so these are my different documents that I've created over here. I'm going to go in and I'm going to find the book that we're going to be building a creator for is Soul Survivor, but I'm actually going to use my one for the Rune that binds, just because I want to show you some stuff, and that one's got content in it. If I double click on it, it's just going to automatically open it up in my browser right here. And this is one of the reasons why I do prefer Edge, because I have the option of going up here and setting it to 2-page. And if I click the 2-page and I have it show the cover pages separately, it'll show me the layout, the way that the book will appear in print. So this is the first page of my book. In fact, let me show you here real fast. There's my first page. There's my cover page. And as I go down, there's my first page. So let me show you real quick what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the book right here. And when I open up the first page, you see there's my map right there. You can see my map. And I open up the second page, and you see it kind of lines up the exact same way as it does in the Chrome version. So when I go right here, you can kind of see that right there. Let's do this right there. You can kind of see how it matches up exactly right there. And that's what I like. That's one of the reasons I like Edge. Chrome doesn't do that. It doesn't have that ability to do that. So that's one of the reasons why I prefer Edge over Chrome. But whatever one you use. So where you're going to find your page count is like right up here at the top in Edge, and see 371. It's in the same place in Chrome. And I've got over 20 pages of extra material in the book that's going to affect the thickness. So you have to have that whole count in there. And that's where you find it, 371. Now, if you have Acrobat Reader, and it's in a little bit different place, it's not at the top, it's down here on the side, and you can see it right there. Okay, guys, let's suppose that you didn't use a PDF program, a program like Scribus or Adobe InDesign or something, or Adobe Acrobat to create your book. You actually just uploaded your Word document onto Amazon, and you don't have a PDF file to check your content to see how many pages it is. It's actually pretty easy. I've got you covered on that. It's actually very simple. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back here to your page, your Amazon bookshelf right here. Make sure on bookshelf, and you're going to scroll down and you're going to find your book. You're going to come over here to the ellipses on the right. You're going to click on that or hover over it, and you're going to go to edit paperback content. So you're going to click on the edit paperback content, and that's going to take you down here, and you're going to just scroll down all the way to the bottom. Don't worry about anything else. And then right there at the bottom, you're going to see your page count. And that's where you find it if you uploaded your document as a Word document. Now, I don't recommend doing that. I would really recommend you go and check out my Scribus video on how to do the internal layout and design of your book, and use that, because you'll get a much better end product than you will just by uploading your document, your manuscript to Word. That's my personal opinion. You're competing against millions of books on Amazon. Anything you can do to make your book stand out from the crowd, I recommend spending the time to do that. And so you're going to go in here to your cover calculator, and you're going to put in that 371, and then hit calculate dimensions. Download template, and it's going to give you the option to save it. And there's one I just downloaded and created. I'm going to go and double click on that and open it up. And when I open it up, you'll see I have a total of 3 files in here. The first one is right here. It is a PDF file. And we'll use that later when we go into Scribus as a template to import our image into. But it also has a PNG file, which is a graphical image. And we'll use that one to create and build our book cover. And the README text is just some text information. To be honest with you, I've never opened it. I don't really know what's in it. I don't care. But if you double click on one of these, you'll see right here, there's our template. You can see the template, and it actually matches up with what we have created here. So it tells us there's our 6x9, tells us we have 371 pages. We use white paper. So it gives us the trim size. It gives us the color size of the paper, black and white versus color, how many pages we have, and what paper we're using. And then it just basically shows us where everything is. So real fast, I'm going to go on a quick tour of what this template is. For the black solid line, this is where the template or the book is going to be cut by the printer. After you design your cover and you upload it to them, when they cut it to attach it to the binding of the book, they're going to cut it on that black line. Anything outside of that black line will be cut off. The blue dashed line here in the center, these two lines, that's just where the covers fold over. So again, looking right here, that's just, sorry, my camera's out of focus. That's these two lines right here. So that's where the fold is. That's one blue line right there. And then on the back, that's the other blue line so that you have your spine. So pretty self-explanatory. The red area is the bleed area, and anything that is on your cover, this is where it'll bleed over to. So that's stuff that could or may or may not show up on your cover. And everything in the live area, that's the white area, that will appear in your cover. So going back to what I was talking about here, let me do the full here so I can show you. So if you look at my cover here, you can see I have this border around the side. You can see this border here on the side that goes all the way around and across the top. That has to be in my live area or it gets cut off. So when I'm designing the cover, that is in the live area. And yes, I know you're probably thinking to yourself right now, hey, John, your cover doesn't match any of the criteria you told us to put on ours. And you are 100% right. Well, not really. It does have what I think is a visually interesting image. The reason why it doesn't is I was going to a convention. I didn't have all the covers that I wanted. They didn't match. They were made by 3 different artists. And as a consequence of that, they looked like they were all 3 different books, not a book in a series. And so I had to real fast come up with, in a matter of weeks, a cover that was uniform. And so that's kind of what I did. I created these really, really fast so that they have a uniform look to them. And when you look at the covers over here, you'll see that they do look like they belong to the same series. There's a problem with them. Brandon Sanderson actually has covers like very similar to this. I didn't know it at the time, but it was reassuring when I created these covers and I found Brandon Sanderson's covers. But Brandon Sanderson is probably one of the most popular fantasy writers in the world today. So people don't go looking for his books without knowing who he is. His name, people look for that name and then they pick up the book, and the cover is secondary to his name. I'm not that big, obviously. And so my cover, it works. Don't get me wrong. People come up to me at conventions. They see the books. They come over to talk to me because the covers are different and they do stand out from all the other books at the convention. But they do fail. They don't tell you the genre. They don't tell you the tone. They don't suggest story. And there's no action happening on them. I think they're very visually appealing, very pretty books. I'm going to maintain these covers mostly for conventions and my signature edition of autographed copies. But so you have something unique. And I have redesigned my cover. If you're interested, I'm going to show it to you real fast just as a how-to. I'll do that a little bit later. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'll show you the cover that I did redesign for the books to sell on Amazon for both ebook and print and one like that. But let's get back to the template. All right. So once we get the template and we have it, we want to actually drop it into KRITA. And when we do that, then it's pretty straightforward process of let me come over here real fast and pull up KRITA. Looking at it right here. So there's my cover. There's a template. You see, I've already imported it. It's really easy to bring a template in. You just go up here. You go to open an existing file, and you'll just browse where you downloaded your template after you've extracted it. So it's actually pretty easy. Okay, so now that we've got that in here, we are ready to begin working with it. If you haven't downloaded KRITA yet, I'm gonna go ahead and have you pause the video. Go ahead and download KRITA and install it. And then once you've got that done, unpause the video, and we'll take you on a tour and show you where everything's at. So go ahead and pause the video. I'll wait for you. The thing we're gonna do is we're gonna jump in here once you're back. If you downloaded it, we're gonna kind of go over this real fast. The thing you'll notice probably first and foremost, let's make a bigger picture, is that the program looks different probably when you install the default settings than mine does, and that's because I have configured it, and I'm going to show you how to configure it my way. So we're going to do a real quick tour of KRITA before we get in here so you kind of know and won't get lost as I'm walking you through things. You can configure it however you want, but I'm going to be taking you on a tour of how to use KRITA with my configuration. So I'll show you how to set up with my configuration so that if you're following along, you'll be able to see where I go and then go there as well. It's really very customizable, so you can, after you figure out how to use it and you know what the tools do, you can configure it so that it matches your workflow. But for now, I would recommend setting it up with my configuration. so that you can follow me along. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, of course, is this area right in here where we have our template. Let me just real fast pick this arrow here just so I don't lose my cursor. And this area right here where the template is sitting in, this is called the canvas, and you can zoom in or zoom out, and you can move things around by holding the shift key down. Now, excuse me, not the shift key, I apologize, the space key, the space bar, and then grabbing the document with your left mouse, and you can move things around, and you can zoom back in. You can zoom in to get really high, low resolution, the whole 9 yards. It's really, really very nice. But this is your canvas. This is where all your work is going to take place and where you're going to see things at. On the left-hand side, we have your toolbar. We're not going to use all the tools here. We're going to use a handful of them. We're going to use the paintbrush. We'll use the text tool. We'll use down here, this is our resizing tool. It's called transform. And then this is our move tool, which allows us to move things, individual elements that we're working with. We'll use the gradation tool. We'll use it for a couple of things to make our letters look cool, and also to sometimes make the blur pop off the background a little bit more. This is our color picker. We can use this when we click on that and we go over something. It will allow us to copy a specific color. We will use this, what's called, sometimes it's called a flood tool in Adobe Photoshop, but it's a fill tool. It basically fills up an area that you've selected. And we'll skip over these. We're going to use our selectors right here. So these selectors come in different shapes. This is a rectangle. You can see right here, it selects a rectangle shape, obviously. This is a circle, and when you draw it, you can do an oval, a circle, whatever, and it selects that area inside of it and contains it in there. This is good for rotoscoping and doing fine detail. This is kind of a polygonal, however you pronounce that word. So you can select areas just by clicking on them. You're not going to probably use this one very much, I'm going to be honest with you. But then the other one we have here is the freeform, and that allows us to just kind of draw whatever we want to get where we're going to get. So you want to trace the outline of something, you can use that. And then we have the wizard, which is this one right here, and that allows us to select an area right there just by clicking on it, and it intelligently selects the area. You can see right here. Let's grab this real fast. We'll grab this one here. If you look real close, you can see it's drawn an outline around here. And if I hit delete now, it'll delete all the white stuff, but it keeps the letters. Whenever you do something, you can always undo it by going up here and hitting the undo and redo buttons. So I'll just hit undo there real fast. And when you're on the select tool, you can right click anywhere and choose to deselect, and that will unselect what you were working with. When you have an area selected, only the area that's selected will be affected. So for instance, if I go and select this area right here, and I try to erase something, let's go grab my brush here real fast and make it an eraser. Don't worry that I'm not showing you where this stuff is. I'm going to show it a little bit later, but I have an eraser here, and if I try to erase over here, I can't because it's not in the selected area. But if I erase over here, I can because it is in the selected area. So select picks a specific area that you work within, and it protects the rest of the image. So if I want to work in just a contained area, I'll use the select tools. All right, let's go ahead and undo that. So that's the toolbar. Up here across the top, I'm not going to spend too much time in here. These are pretty self-explanatory for the most part. This is where you create a new document. This is where you open documents. It'll open up Explorer so you can go to a location on your computer and open an existing document. This saves what you're working on, undo and redo. We'll talk more about these later. These are our gradient tools and our color pickers and our texture tools. I'll talk more about those later. This right here is the tool settings. We're not going to play with that. The tool settings get really complicated, and I don't want to mess with that. This right here is our paintbrush or our edit brush settings. We're not going to mess with those either. This right here is our brush presets. If we click on that, it gives us an option of all the different brushes we can choose from. That's always going to be there, and it's available to you. That's always going to be up there and available to you in the top. You saw me get to it somewhere else over here, and that's because I prefer having it off to the side in an easy to access dock, and I'll show you how to configure that a little bit later. Over here, I'm not going to mess with any of these right here. I'm going to come over here and look at the opacity and the size. So I've got the eraser selected right now. So if I go, if I get the brush selected over here and I try to erase things, it's going to erase them. And I can set the size to a much higher size, and you see right here my brush is bigger, and now when I do that, it does a bigger erase. I can also set the opacity, and that determines how much of it is being used, so how much of it. So if I do this here now, you see it's not as opaque. It doesn't punch a hole all the way through. it leaves something behind. Whereas when it's at 100% opacity and I do something, it wipes everything out. So that's the tools you're probably gonna work with the most are the create new, the open, save, undo and redo, the gradient tool, the brush preset selector, and opacity and size. Speaking of undo tools, let's go ahead and undo all those erasures that I did. Then of course we have across the top here, we have our text menu, file, edit, view, image, all those things here. There's some useful tools in here. You can play around with them. File is pretty obvious. It's going to give you the option to do new, open, open recent, which is kind of nice. I like the open recent because I come here and I see all the stuff that I've worked on before. It only does about 10 of your most recent ones, but it shows them right there. So you don't have to go searching for them. You can just click on the one that you want and open up a recent copy. So that's kind of nice. Save and then save as, so you can save as a copy. You're not going to deal with a lot of these things in here because most of it is for the more sophisticated stuff. Edit is something you'll use a little bit of because you're going to use it to copy and paste things between different tabs. So edit you'll use quite a bit because you're going to use it to copy some content from one tab into another tab. So for instance, right here, because we're going to start layering in just a moment, you go over, say for instance, to the cover art here that we have that I want to bring in, right? So I would bring this in right here and I want to copy that cover art into my template. I would want to just go up to edit and choose copy. And there's some other things that you can use these for, but your biggest one is going to be editing and copying and pasting, that sort of thing. So I would copy this image right here and drop it into here. The next one over that we're going to use, you can look at view. View will give you the ability to see different things. Like for instance, right now, you'll notice I have no rulers. I do like to have the rulers turned on, so I will turn my rulers on. And the rulers are very useful to have right here. You can see my rulers right there. You can go in and you can actually show your guides. And I don't have any guides, so they're not turned on. But you can go in and show and turn different things on. I like the rulers for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest reasons why I like the rulers is because if you look over here on this one, you'll see I have these lines right here that are going across. And if you actually, I've got a layer in here already because I started doing this as a setup for this. I have my template already cleaned up and ready to go, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. And I can see through my template. You can set the opacity of the layers above so you can see the layers below. And I've set my template to about 50%, and I can see through, and I can see where my live area is. I can see where my bleed is. I can see where my cut line is. And so I know where everything is supposed to line up on my cover, and that's very, very useful. But what I do is I don't normally work with this opaque layer because it washes everything out. I don't like the look of it. You certainly can. I'll show you how to do that if you want to. But what I do is I set up the opaque layer, and then I create these lines, and you can do this just by dragging and you can drag them down here, and I can create marks of where I want stuff to be. So if I want to have something else, like say for instance I want my well, here's a good example right here, this center line right here. If you look at the template, there's not anything there, but that's my center line for my spine. So when I line my text up for my spine, I want it to be in the center of the spine, and that center line helps me know exactly where that's at. So that's why I like the rulers, and they're useful, and I do recommend you turn them on. You'll wonder how you ever lived without them. The other thing that's cool about rulers is you can actually right click on the ruler and you can change the measurement unit that you're using. Right now it's set to pixels, and like I said, I'm in the United States, so I use inches. So as I click on this and I go to inches, you can see right here it's 13 inches across plus a little bit. Let's go over here and actually look at the template that I have here and do the same thing. I'm going to show you something real cool here real fast. So down here in the lower right hand corner, you can try to zoom this in and get it lined up perfectly, but it's kind of a pain to do that exactly. But if you go down to the lower right hand corner, you'll see you have this zoom indicator. And if you hover over it and click on this little drop down, you can actually hit fit to page height. Oh, KRITA has never done that. Okay, guys, this is a great example of, this is a good lesson. I've never had KRITA do this on me before, but this is a really, really good lesson right here. So I'm just going to take a moment. Save your work. I've never had KRITA crash on me, but it does happen. So save your work often. That's weird. I've never had it crash. It's a very stable program usually. I don't know why it crashed. So this is your startup screen. This is the first thing you see. And you can see I have all my stuff in here that I've opened up recently. So I'm going to go and open up that one. I'm going to discard the autosave. I don't care about that because we haven't really done anything. That's the one we were working with before. And I had my rulers here. I showed you how to turn those rulers on. Let's go ahead and open up the stuff I had already. I'm going to go ahead and open those again real fast. And you do that just by going up to File and go to Open Recent, and you'll see the ones that I was talking about. So let's go ahead and grab that one right there. There's my actual book cover that we're going to be reproducing in here. It'll take a moment to load. That's a cool thing about life while this is loading. Things happen. You can't ever prepare for them. And sometimes accidents turn into opportunities. And it was an opportunity for me to show you, to reinforce, I'm sure you already know it, to reinforce the importance of always backing up and saving your work. Okay, so I've got all my old peripheral art loaded back up, and I'm gonna show you how to basically clean this template up, because you don't want to have your template with all this information in it and interfering with what things look like and interfering with the blurb and all of that kind of stuff. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here real fast. In fact, let's take this real fast. Let me go ahead and edit and copy this. And then I'm going to go over here and open this up, and I'm going to drop this on top in here. So let's hit Control V. All right, now let's imagine that this, I'm going to talk about my cover that I redesigned here real fast, but let's just take this and set the opacity to about 50% or so. So you see right here, I've got the template in there on top of the new cover I designed for my book, The Rune That Binds. Yes, this is a shameless self-plug because, guys, these videos take a lot of time to make, and I'm going to plug my book while I'm making them. All this text and everything here actually really interferes, makes it kind of hard for me to see where things are at. It's clunky, it's not clean. And so what I can do is I can go in here and I can use my tools to clean all that junk out and fill it up with something that's going to look good. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all this junk that I don't need, so I have a nice clean template. And this is how you do it. If you want to use the template as your guide for where things go as opposed to the guidelines, I'm going to show you how to do both. Just go in here and click on the rectangular selection tool, and you're just going to grab everything on the front cover and highlight it, and then boom, like that. And then you're going to hit delete, and that's going to clear that out. I'm going to do the same thing on the back, but I'm not going to grab everything on the back because I don't want to lose this barcode, because I need to know where the barcode goes so I don't accidentally overwrite it or have text or something that goes beyond it. So I'm just going to bring it down to there. We'll hit delete there. I'm going to do the same thing here. Get rid of that. These are little things. They're probably not that important, but I'm just going to get rid of all the text on there so that I don't have to deal with it. All right. I'm going to delete that there. Now remember, when you've selected something, you can't work on anything outside of it. So I go in here and I try to fill these areas in with white, which I'm going to show you how to do here in a second. As long as this is selected, I'm not going to be able to do that. I can only do that with this area here. So when I go to my fill tool right here, and I select it, and I go up to my color palette and I choose white, and I change my brush. This is important, away from erase to the airbrush. It's already there, so I'm going to just get this one right here, airbrush linear. If it were set to erase, it wouldn't do anything. So I'm going to make sure my brush is actually additive as opposed to subtractive. So subtractive means you're taking stuff away. An eraser would be subtractive. A brush that adds things like an airbrush or a pencil or a paintbrush, that is going to be additive. So I want something that's additive because I'm going to add the color white here. So if I go over here and I try clicking on these, nothing happens. But in this active area, when I click on that, it does work, but I forgot to set my opacity up. So let's go ahead and set the opacity up to 100%. And now you see how it fills that in, but I can't do any of the others. I have to deselect it. You can go back and change the tool if you want to, or just go up to select up here at the very top on your text menu, click on select and hit deselect, and it'll deselect that. Now you can just go and fill up those boxes right there. So fill that one up, fill that one up, and fill that one up. And now when I come over here and I set my opacity for that layer to 50% or so, I have a nice clean template. I can see where everything goes. And since I left my barcode, I can see that my blurb on the back is going to fit very nicely and not overwrite the barcode. So I won't have anything hidden. The barcode won't be overridden, guys. What will happen is a barcode will be laid down on top of whatever you got where it's supposed to go. So if you have text for your blurb, I would probably lift this up a little bit because it's really, really close, and I have room to do that. But I would lift it up a little bit, but if I had it go down to where the barcode is, my blurb would be hidden beneath it, and that's going to look unprofessional, and it's going to be sloppy, and it's not going to look good. See right here, now there is a little bit, if you look right here, this doesn't line up perfectly, and that's okay. My cover right here doesn't match up, because if you see, my border actually is outside of the live area. It's in the bleed area, and it's real close to where the fold is. So it's going to look off center on the cover, and that's important to recognize. So I would definitely want to move that over. But you can see right here why it's important to have that these guides here, so you know where it's at. You just can't eyeball it. And this right here tells me, looking at this is not going to be a good cover for me, because it's going to be snug. It's further away over here. This is not centered in that, and I don't like that. So I would move that over and kind of range it. Everything else looks pretty good. My top and my bottom, my top's kind of close, my bottom's off. So this doesn't line up perfectly the way that I want, and that's okay. I'm not worried about that because this template isn't for this book. But do you see the importance of it? Real fast, I'll just talk about what I did here. Like I said, I realized I was being a hypocrite. My covers don't match the criteria that I sent. This one does. When you look at this cover compared to the one that I've got off to the side here, over on this side, this one definitely suggests the genre and the tone. There is a suggestion of story. The character is in the middle of doing something. His arms are spread. He's got a wide stance. He's looking at the pillar with the runes glowing on it. And so there's definitely some sort of action indicated here. I do have the blurb on the back that meets those three criteria as well. It has the protagonist's central desire, their central challenge, and the stakes. So it has all that stuff on there. So this is a redesigned cover that kind of matches what I was talking about. And it is going to replace these that I have over here on this side. This side over here. So it is going to replace those. Practice what you preach, right? Anyway, and I think you'll agree too, this is a cover that is going to be more likely to generate interest for the average user. I very much personally like my iconographic, that's a funny word, iconography of my covers. I like the Celtic knots. I like the way they look. They're very visually appealing to me, but I need them to be visually appealing to my audience. It doesn't matter how much you like your cover if it doesn't generate clicks or get people to pick it up. It's got to be a cover that people are going to pay attention to and want to open up your book to see what it's about. And if I'm being honest, as much as I like the artistic style of my old covers, they didn't work. They worked at conventions because people are coming to talk to me and ask me questions, and they stood out from the rest of the crowd. But they don't work on Amazon. I'll tell you right now, when I have these covers up on Amazon, I was advertising, people would, and I had very effective click-through rate. My click-through rate was very high, above average where it's supposed to be. And then they'd land on my page, and I never got sales. I didn't get hardly any sales at all. Now that I've changed my covers, I can take advantage of that advertising that's being very effective and having a high click-through rate. And people are actually buying the book now because this interests them enough to go into the book. So, like I said, it doesn't matter how much you like the cover, it's how much your potential readers are going to like the cover, and it generates interest for them. So this cover has been much more successful than my other ones. But it has all the elements I talked about. That's why it's more successful. It has the elements I was talking about. It has genre, it has tone, it has action, it has a suggestion of story. It has all of those things. So it does kind of fit in there. A couple other things here. I'm going to talk about this, and this is something you want to think about. If you notice my coloring on my cover right here, the coloring is very similar to the coloring of the glowing runes. It's not identical because I don't want it to bleed in, but it's very similar. So there's a matching color here. The colors stand off the page. They're easy to read. If you zoom out, that I can read that as a thumbnail. So that's very important. The color scheme works well. So the color scheme is an important thing in picking that out. And I'm not going to go into a lot of time talking about color theory and color wheels and whatnot like that. Long story short, you can Google this, Google up color wheel or color theory, and you'll see how the color wheel works and how opposites and what colors are opposite of your prime color or your primary color and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go into detail about that. I'm pretty fortunate in that I know this stuff and I can kind of get a good looking cover that matches that, but that's something that's a whole video to itself, and that would be a really long video. So I'm not going to go into that, but just be aware that a good cue is to find a good color in your cover that it doesn't blend into. Like blue is obviously a predominant color here, but if I made my letters blue, the title would blend into the background. It would be hard to read as a thumbnail. But this yellow, here you have the sun, you have the yellow in the runes, they're complementary. So you have this tying into that, and that works just fine. So if you can find a color that's not predominant on your cover, but is on your cover, then you can use that to make your text. That's just a real quick, dirty shortcut. But anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that. I'm pretty happy with it. It turned out really well. Full disclosure, however, I did not design this cover inside of KRITA. KRITA is pretty much identical in capability to the one I use, which is Corel. And I've been using it for years, since the 90s. It goes back to, yeah, so it's one I'm very familiar with. But it is a paid program, and it's about $100. This is KRITA we're using is free, like I said, trying to save you some money here. But I could have done everything that I did here inside KRITA, including the gradation of the lettering, the drop shadow that makes it stand out from the background a little bit more. I could have done all of that inside KRITA. There's a couple things that I can do inside of Paint Shop Pro that I can't do in KRITA, but for the most part, 98% of everything I do in Paint Shop Pro, I can do in KRITA. So anyway, that's the new cover. Tell me what you guys think of it in the comments below. If you don't mind, I'd be interested in your feedback. Would this be a book that you'd pick up and check out? Okay, jumping back over here, and now I'm going to show you how to create the guides. It's super easy. It's not that hard, but before we get into that, I'm going to show you the docking station because we kind of got interrupted. I went off on a tangent, and I apologize for that because the system crashed. So I did a tour of the toolbars over here on this side. I showed you the canvas. We talked about this little zoom feature over here, which is really nice. I went over these controls on the top. We kind of went into a couple of the text menus up here. We'll get into them more. I have docking station turned on over here on my side. You have the docking stations, and you can see them by going into settings, and you'll see an option for showing the dockers. It's turned on by default. If you want to hide them to give yourself some more real estate, it hides the dockers, and the toolbar on the left-hand side is a dock as well. If you accidentally turn it off, just go in here, go to settings, and hit show dockers. And then you can pick which dockers you want. And you can actually, even with the dockers, you can take multiple docks and put them into one. So I have the advanced color selector, and I have the palette right here. So the palette just basically allows me to see all the different colors, and I can scroll down and see the palette that I want to work with right here. And then I have this. I'll show you why I have this here in just a second. But I wanted to have them together because they're actually separate palettes. If I go in here and not palettes, excuse me, docks. If I go into my dockers, I have the advanced color selector right there. And then down here, I have the palette. So those are two different docks, but I wanted to have them together instead of having them on top of each other. So what you can do is right here, you have this little padlock right here. You can unlock it. And when you unlock it, you can actually drag it off and you could set it somewhere else. Or I just have it free floating. And if you drag that dock on top of another dock, you see kind of turns that kind of grayish blue color. When you let go of it, it adds it as a tab next to that other dock. And once you get your docks where you want them to be, I highly recommend going in here and clicking on that padlock so you don't lose you don't drag them out of order and then have to try to remember how you had them set up before. So these are my docks. I have the palette and the advanced color selector. And real fast, the reason why I have the advanced color selector is because you want to have a library, or not a library, but a record of the settings that you use in creating the book. So you may have to go back and create it. Like you saw it crashed. So I've got my project elements right here, and I'm going to go ahead and open that real fast. And what the project elements are, let's zoom out just a little bit, are the different elements that I use for this cover. So I have my background. There's my picture. This is the project folder. It's located in the downloads folder. I know the name of it, so I can find it very easily. There are no fonts on it. This is a whole different layer, so there's no fonts. There's nothing really applied to this one. I have my front title. This is going to be its own layer. It's not downloaded. It tells me the font that I used to create it. It tells me the effects I've applied to the layer, a drop shadow and a bevel and an emboss. And the really important part right over here are the colors. So this is red, green, blue. This is hue, saturation, and I cannot for the life of me remember what V stands for. Um, I'll have to put it in. I'll have to put it in post-it. I can't remember. And then this is the hex code for the color. So at any rate, when you come in here, I'm actually pull up the actual cover that I created, which is this one right here. So when you look at this right here, there's my. I have the drop shadow. I have the. You can see right there. I have the bevel applied to the title, and I have the color selector. So if I actually go in here, and I look at my there's my spreadsheet right there. So my color for the lettering is for red, green, blue. It's 255, 255, 255, 177, and 0. And then my HSV, I'll show you that in just a second. Then I have my hex code. So if I actually go in here and I put in 255, 177, and then set this to 0, that's my color for my text. And then if you see right here is FFB100, and I could put that number in here too. I could put the FFB100 here, and it would do the same thing. So FFB100. So it records what the values are to achieve that color. And then HSV, in here I have the option of doing, instead of RGB, of doing HSV. You don't have to record all three. It's not necessary. I do, because I'm just a little bit of a detail freak. But any one of those three will work. You can record the hex code, you can record the RGB values, or the HSV values. This is a really useful tool for that very reason, because I can then get the colors exactly the same way that I need to. Like for instance, if I was doing the letters and I really liked it and it crashed like it did earlier, I've never had it crash before, but again, it's a good lesson to remind you computer programs do crash. Really good tool to have there. That's why I have this one instead of just the palette, because I don't want to have to try to sit in here and try to gauge and figure out which these are. I could reproduce them right here. You can see here I have the HSV and the RGB as an option here as well under the palette. So it's there, it is available. But I also like this. I can go in here and I can choose the color that I want, and then I can also choose how much black or white that I want in there. And this is basically, this is your tone and your hue. Sorry, your tone and your hue. So tone and hue are how much white or how much black you have in there. And it just changes whether a color is darker or lighter, red versus pink, for instance. So I like to be able to kind of play with that a little bit, and kind of, I can move it and get the color that I want a little bit more precisely. And I'm not locked into the color palette that's right in here. You can see my color palette has got a lot of choices. This will probably do everything you need it to do, but I like to have that variation. That's why I put that in there. You can omit it if you want to, but that's what it's there for. I like using both, and I switch back and forth between them. So at any rate, that's what that's for. The other docking station that I have down here are my brushes and my brush presets and my layers. And if I go in here and I turn those dockers on right there, you'll see I've got brush presets and layers, and I've got them paired up. Just personal preference. There's not any logical reason like I do have here. They're not necessarily related to each other, but when I'm working on a layer, I'm usually jumping around in the brushes that I'm going to use. Like I'm going to erase something, or I'm going to add something. And so I can just kind of go from the layer that I'm working on over onto my brushes and then back to the layer. So that's why I've got them. So I turn those on, and again, I merged those two different docks into one with tabs, and then I locked it. And then the last one that I have is my grids and guidelines. Now this is a single dock. If you go into settings and you go to your dockers right here, you will see that the grids and guidelines right here is just one dock. You can get to them up here. I showed you how to do it up here. You can do it up here, but I like just having it down here. And I can show my grid, and I can snap the grid, and I can go to my guides, and I can set my guides. I can show my guides. I can snap my guides. I can change the colors of my guides to different stuff to make them stand out from the background more. So it's just right there, and it's very convenient. This is my setup, and I really recommend that you set it up this way. I'm going to go ahead and do this real fast. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this screen right here. And if you want to pause the video, let me switch this to the laptop full screen. If you want to pause the video and just kind of go through for a second and set your KRITA up so it matches mine. And that way, as we're navigating together and you're following along, where I go, you'll be able to go as well. And you can, once you get familiar with the tools and what they do, you can set it up so it matches your workflow. This is what works for me, but it might work differently for you. So go ahead and pause the video and see what you want to do in regard to getting your KRITA set up. And once you're done, come back, unpause, and we will continue. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and begin the layout. I already showed you guys how to clean up the template, and the guides are very simple for setting up your guides. It's very, very easy to do. So doing my guides for this, very easy. This is I moved over to the one I started setting up before. I just basically put my template up on top. And by the way, you'll want to rename your different layers when you make a new layer, they come in and they're just called background. And you just double click on it and change the name. So I have cover art here and I have template here. And when I add a new layer for like the title, so I can go down here and hit plus and add a new layer and I'll just call it title. But to do the grids or the lines that I have here, my guides, I'm going to have guides shown, turn them on, and I'm going to make sure my guides aren't locked. Pick a color that I like, and I'm going to set my opacity to around 50, 60% so that I can kind of see where things are at. You get a little bit lighter, you get a little bit darker. But I just need to know where the template shows me my guides are. I'm not interested in the cut line because I'm not going to put anything beyond that. I just want to know where all my live areas are so I can keep everything in the live area. And I've already done that, but you just basically grab the ruler. If you want a line that goes horizontally, if you want one that goes vertically, grab the one on the left, but I just grab it and I'm just going to drag it down here. I'm actually going to mark out where my barcode is so I don't cross the line there. Right, and then I'm going to come and do the same thing over here. And if you guys remember, if you don't like these measurements, you can always right click on the ruler and pick one that you prefer. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag this over here. So now I know where my barcode is. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and hide the template. Now, I won't delete the template. You can remove any layer you don't want to work with just by right-clicking and choosing the remove layer option. But I do like to turn the template on every now and then and just double check and kind of make sure everything does line up the way it's supposed to. I might have accidentally, if I forgot to lock my guides, I might have accidentally bumped a guide and it's out of alignment and not realized it. And then I come in here and I say, oh, that's not right. And I can fix it. So I don't ever get rid of the template, but that is a good rule of thumb. Once you've got your guides set up, come in here and lock them so that they don't move. And that way you won't have to worry about misaligning things. And we're pretty much done with setting up and getting prepped for it. We've got our cover art in here. Normally you wouldn't have your cover art showing you, just do your guidelines to begin with without cover art in there. You can do it with cover art in however you want. But for right now, guys, I'm going to call this video quits. I'm going to do another video over the weekend that's going to actually show you how to put all these elements together. But we've got you set up, laid out, and ready to go with your template designed, not designed, but set up and laid out, getting KRITA configured so that it's ready to go. I would spend between this video and when the next one drops looking for some cover art. I'm going to put some sites down below: Pixabay, iStock, Pond 5. I use Pond 5 a lot. And you can go look at the art that you're looking for. Keep those 5 elements in mind that I was talking about. You want to keep in the fact that your cover art should have a suggestion of genre, the tone. It should have a suggestion of story. It should have a visually interesting image, that suggestion of story, and it should have some. If you have people on it, they should be caught in the act of doing something. They should be in action. I'm going to add an additional thing on here real fast. The other thing that I'm going to recommend for you is if we go in here, we look at this right here. You want to have it where there's a large area on the left or the right, doesn't matter, because you can go in here and you can mirror images very easily, flip them around. So if it's on the left and it's on the right and you need it to be on the left, it's not the end of the world, because you can flip them around just by going into image and going down to mirror image horizontally, and it'll flip it around for you. But you want to make sure you have a large area on one side with most of the action or interest going on the other side so that you have a place for your blurb. You got to have a place for your blurb, and there shouldn't be a lot of busyness or stuff going on here. There's a little bit of stuff going on in the background, but if I had my blurb over the top of the astronaut, that would just ruin the whole feel and look of it. At any rate, that's what you want to look for. You want to look for artwork that has stuff on one side, but gives you a nice neutral area on the back for your blurb. And that's what I have here. That's what I have here. And if you can get that, that's the sixth thing you'll need for your book cover, is to have a neutral space on the left or the right side. So you can flip, if you have to, you can flip it around, but it gives you the ability to have a blurb and your title without a lot of distractions. With that said, guys, I'm going to work on this video, on the second video, for how to actually put the cover together, and that'll be the third video in this series. And that one should be a lot easier to do because we're just going to be adding the elements and showing you how to do a couple tweaks with the tools inside of KRITA. So go ahead and download KRITA, download the template and set it up the way you want it to. Put it into KRITA, set your KRITA up with the guides and everything the way that you want. Go find some artwork. I would find several different pieces of art if I were you, so you can play with all the different ones that might work for you. I have a lot of different art when I was looking at doing this video. So this was one piece of art that I was looking at. This actually comes from iStock.com. This was free. They offered it as a free one, but normally it'd be paid. I had a whole bunch of different ones. This was a piece of artwork that I played around with and I did a prototype for. I didn't like it. You see it looks very same. It looks very much the same. I spelled the title right on this one. Go out and look for a bunch of different artwork that you can find and use for your cover. This was a really good one that I liked a lot. This was a really good one that I liked a lot. This was another good one. So don't be afraid to grab a bunch of different pieces of artwork. So there's the cover I was using before, and see what works for you. And then if you do pick a piece of art that you got from a donation site like Pixabay, and you decide to go with that for your cover, I really highly encourage you that you do donate something. They put a lot of time and effort into making these covers and cleaning them up so they look really good for us. I'm done, guys. Thank you for your time. And if you like this video, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when the next video drops. I'm going to try to get it done this weekend. This one should not be as long as the others to cut together. So I'll hopefully have it up by Sunday or Monday. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to see me do, drop it down in the comments below. And remember, the absolute best way to support me is to buy my books. There'll be a link to those down below. All right, guys, thank you very much. Keep writing. Never let a day go by where you don't write something, even if it's just one word.